What's up, everybody? I just want to discuss a little something with y'all. It's about equal give and take and the importance of it. Now, I always try to be as fair as possible. So, when it comes to equal give and take, I think I do my share for the most part. But what I'm realizing is that it's more important than I realized. It actually goes a lot deeper, at least from the perspective that I'm looking at it. I've noticed that balance is the key to this life. And when things aren't balanced, balance still has to occur. And the universe does that on its own accord, whether we participate willingly or unwillingly, right? So I'm imagining that if everyone was doing their part in making sure that there was equal give and take in every situation, it seems to me that problems would be minimized drastically. But it's like the universe is constantly having to balance itself out. Why? Because energies are not using discernment. If you take more than what's due to you, then it's going to come out of you in a way you may not be expecting, which can cause a domino effect of other problems, right? That's why I feel like it's so important that we are using our best judgment when dealing with every situation. And it's imperative that we act just and fair in situations, right? Now, when it comes to evening the score, settling the score, we tend to take matters into our own hands, but a lot of times we can't determine the extent of whatever punishment we want to bestow upon somebody. We're just going off of our own emotions and reckless behavior just to feel satisfied to say that, oh, we got them back. But if you overdo it, then what's coming back to you is more than what you bargained for, right? I feel like the universal plight is balance. And when we go against that grain, universe pushes itself back into balance, and how we're affected is on us at that point. And it's like we can't elevate to the highest version of ourselves as species because we're constantly rerouting from some past decision of unjust, unbalanced that has to be worked out before we can elevate to another level in our life. And I feel like the same thing is happening with the universe, right? The universe probably wants to do something else, but it's constantly balancing out energies that are unbalanced. And it can't go on to the next thing. It can't take us to a higher perspective or a higher living, because it's stuck here in this realm of balancing out, doing a balancing act. So I think if we just take some time to consider when we move accordingly, and structure a way that we're not taking more than was due to us, and we're not overextending ourselves. In the smallest situation, you can think of any example, You're giving to a person, you're showing them love and compassion, you go bending over backwards for people and you go out of your way for them, and you're not getting any of this in return. What is the balancing act looking like? How is that being balanced out? Well, on a good note, you got a lot of dharma coming to you. There's a lot of good coming into you for all the good that you've been putting out. But in that time frame, you're depleting yourself, and other people who are benefiting from your acts of kindness, you know, they're basically being, what's the word I'm looking for? They're being coddled. And it's detrimental to them because, one, they're not learning balance in their own lives and taking accountability. And then there comes the sense of entitlement to where it's expected to be like this. And the trauma that you're causing yourself is going to be equal to the trauma that they're going to be going through when the universe decides to balance out the situation. Now, that's just one situation and one example. Think of the countless people there are with countless situations that the universe is constantly balancing out, of situations that are just like that or similar or have the same ring to it, you know? So, just something to think about. When you think about, oh, the world doesn't seem like it's getting any better, or, oh, it seems like things are just falling apart, or, what's actually taking place is a whole balancing act occurring. And sometimes it takes time for these things to balance out. So we want to make sure that we're doing our part to not cause the universe to have to do any more work than it already has to do, right? And if we consider that, maybe we can start seeing changes in our life. Because as soon as the situation becomes unjust and unfair, it creates a faulty foundation. And when you have a faulty foundation, you have a faulty building. And need I say more, right? This is just something to think about, and I felt the need to speak my piece, because I feel like that's part of me doing my due diligence and, the balancing act. Sometimes we have a calling on us for that moment, and I feel like I was called to say something. I felt like it was necessary. That's another thing. If you feel called to speak your mind, or you feel called to take some type of action that is beneficial, it's necessary that you do that. That's part of all balancing things out. That's part of you taking a side to be on the universe's side and saying, I want balance. Yes, I need these things. Yes, these things are necessary, because you don't want to be on the other side of that. We always talk about a calling over our life and our purpose and things like that. But sometimes we have a calling in the moment and we want to take action, because that can be the ladder to the calling of our purpose. If we can't answer the little calls, how are we going to know to answer the big calls, or know how to? So, just something to consider. And make sure you're balancing yourselves out in these unbalanced times. And until next time, peace, love, and infinite light.